Take it.
Got it. Let's go.
Okay.
It says we're live.
You sit and you stand and wait and you wonder. You think maybe it's me and I'm being a fool. You sit and you stand and wait and you wonder. You think maybe it's me and I'm being a fool.
Hey.
Santeria, everybody. Hello. How are you? Welcome to episode 9 of Here for the Shift. My name is Rachel Yakikut. I'm a member of the Beauties of Kamasas Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, coming to you live from Treaty 6 territory. It is hella hot today. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here with our guest. I'm one of your hosts today, co-hosts, and we hope you enjoy the show. We're talking about healthy relationships today.
Hi, hello. Summer Dawn here, coming from California, the Gueño tribe, also known as Kumeyaay, and I am another of your hosts for today, and excited to talk with Laura and discuss relationships. I'm excited. Tappy?
Tapawasiatika Tapasa Killabuk. Hi, my name is Tapasa Killabuk. Some people call me Tappy. I am a mother to 3 beautiful children. I am a lover. I am doing my cards right now because I've just been feeling burnt out and I needed some guidance. And I'm here for the shift. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Hey everybody, Tansei to wow. Shayla Macaulay Nitsiga-san, Larange Otsi, Nia Otsi, Larange, Saskatchewan, Treaty 6. I'm so happy to be here for the shift with these lovely ladies and our new guest, Laura. I'm so thrilled to talk about part 2 in relationships. So hang out, have fun, and join in on the conversation. Take it away, Laura.
Hi, and do you just want me to introduce myself?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah,
Sure.
go on.
Okay. My name is Laura LaRocque, and I currently live in Red Deer, Alberta. And I am really excited to be here with you ladies. When Rachel reached out about talking about relationships, it was a definite yes, because I could talk about relationships all day long. It fills my heart, and I am excited to just talk with you ladies too. And I caught your first episode about relationships, a little bit of it last week while I was putting my son to bed, and everything you're saying, I'm like, oh God, yes. So totally excited to jam with you guys tonight.
Yes.
Welcome. So we're going to start off our show with the little game that we've been kind of doing every week. Drop your finger if. So last week we did it kind of based around what would be more considered as an unhealthy relationship or some signs that you would be in an unhealthy relationship. Today we're going to talk about more along the lines of the healthier part of relationships. So we are going to play this game. Thank you for allowing that cheesy ass.
I just love that so much.
I was thinking the same thing. I love that.
It gives me a lot of joy.
Okay, good.
So drop your fingers. So I'm going to do this first 6. I don't know who's doing the last 4, but we'll figure it out.
I have 3, so
And then
we'll go. That should work.
So we drop our finger if we have this or experience this.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So it's
Okay.
kind of like put a finger down if you've ever been in love. But that's not it yet. Okay. So
Or like never have I ever. But with the finger.
yeah.
Okay.
I could go tonight.
Okay, drop a finger if you've had a supportive person in your relationship. A supportive person in a relationship. There we go.
Are these relationships with like a romantic partner?
Oh, sorry. I was supposed to introduce this, and I have kind of lost my mind the last couple of days. So this can be for anyone. It does not mean you have to be in a relationship with a human, like another person where you're sharing love and experiences with, but it can be another person that you who you share love and experiences with, but it kind of looks different where you don't. Where that could be your friends, that could be your mom, that could be your dad, that could be someone who is special to you. So this is for everyone.
Cool.
So drop a finger if you've been in a supportive relationship. Drop a finger if your thoughts and feelings have been validated in a relationship. Drop a finger if you have had healthy communication in that relationship. Drop a finger if you feel safe with that person. Drop a finger if you can just be you in that relationship. And drop a finger if you are able to be true with that person.
Awesome. Okay, the next one, if you drop a finger if you told the truth about something that you didn't want to tell the truth about in a relationship. If you have healthy boundaries.
Ooh.
This is a tough one because I'm like still learning those healthy boundaries, so.
Yeah. If you practice self-responsibility. Yeah.
Sorry,
important.
say that one more time, Rachel.
If you practice self-responsibility. And put a finger down.
Taking accountability.
Oh, what's that? What?
What?
Okay, drop your finger if you're here for the ship.
Yay!
Okay, awesome. That is a wrap of our game. Okay, thanks so much for playing. Laura, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do as a relationship coach.
Okay, so first what I started out doing was working solely with women because, so I would have to tell you like maybe a little bit about my story if I went into the but do you want me to go there yet?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. So my husband, Mike, and I started dating when I was 18. I just turned 18. We met at the bar. We were drunk and we were pushed into each other and we were forced to go dance. And at that time, he was a boy who was interested in me and asked for my phone number. And I fell madly in love with him because he wanted me. I was a very broken, I say very, but I was a broken, quite codependent girl, just looking for somebody to love me. And so we carried on our relationship for 6 years. We got married. It was quite unhealthy in the form of lots of drinking, lots of partying, no boundaries, no self-responsibility. Pretty much all of those fingers that I just dropped would not have been dropped 10 plus years ago. And we got married. I think I was like 24 or something like that. Got married and my parents divorced when I was 3. So it was always like, I'm never getting a divorce. And that's what I would always tell myself. I am never getting a divorce. And then what was it? 2 years after we were married, I was like, I hate my life and I hate this relationship. And I pointed all the fingers at my husband, and I thought he needed to change and he had a lot of work to do. And so I finally faced that truth that, a relationship, my future wasn't going to be that white picket fence that I grew up dreaming I would have, just fantasizing, right, from all of the Hollywood movies and the fairy tales, right? And so that was like my biggest shift, because I started working with, he was like a coach and a counselor, but he also dealt with addictions, and he worked a lot with, I'm drawing a blank on the name, like when they go in and do interventions. So he did lots of interventions. And so I started just seeing him because he was kind of a person I knew through another person. And as we started talking, he was like, well, you're an enabler. Your partner's probably an alcoholic, and you have lots of your own work to do. So my very first session with him, he was like, I will let you cry about him and tell me all of the things that are wrong with him and about him. But if you agree to work with me, every session after this isn't going to be about him. This is going to be about you. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so I think I was young. I was 26, 27. And I thought that my whole life would be ending. I was like, I didn't want to get divorced. And look, now here I am leaving my husband, and I'm going to be divorced. And I remember sitting in his chair being like, I'm 27 and I'll be divorced. Like, who's going to want me? Like, I just had a pretty crazy mindset when I look back now. And he sat there across from me and was like, you're 27. And he was in his 40s, right? It's like, you are so young. You have a whole lifetime ahead of you. And so it was really cool because he was that masculine energy that I needed in my life. And he helped me heal a lot of things. And so in that work, I realized a lot about myself. I realized how, the broken pieces of myself. And I don't really always like to use the word broken because that sounds, like there's something wrong. But I did lots of healing in that. And in the letting go of my partner, I was like, okay, I'll face the fact that we're done and it's time to move on. And in that letting go, I realized how much I controlled him and tried to make him fit my narrative and all of my expectations. And he was very unhappy. And so he drank, but yet I was like, you drink. And so it was this vicious cycle. And in that, it was the fastest shift. It was in 3 months. We went from like being, okay, let's discuss how we're going to separate, and we'll just give 3 months to kind of get on our feet, get things separated. And plus I had to really build myself up, because if I would have left him at that point, I literally would have like been living in my brother's basement, crying my face off every day and probably never leaving. So that was the goal, was like, okay, well, let's get you built up. We'll separate our stuff, and in 3 months we'll divorce or separate. And so that would actually ended up being our 3rd year anniversary. And we decided to go on a little trip to West Edmonton Mall. We went swimming at the water park. We had like the best day of our life. And on our way home, there's obviously little things that led up to this, big things that led up to this, but it was on the way home where we were both kind of like, we don't want to go that path anymore. Like, we've essentially, as cliche as it sounds, fell back in love. And in all of that, though, I had decided that I was leaving, and I'm going to go to India and take my yoga instructor training and like go find myself, essentially. But when we decided to stay together, I was like, I'm still going somewhere, because in all of that, I realized that there was more to life than just following these steps that I thought was expected of me and that society kind of, portrays, right? And so I was like, I'm still going on a trip. I'm still going to do something. And he was very much in the mindset of, I climb this corporate ladder, I will be here till I retire, kind of thing. And so he ended up letting that all go too. And we got rid of like everything we owned within that year. And we got packed 3 suitcases. We had 2 visas for 2 years and 2 one-way tickets. And we were kind of like, we'll see you in a few months when we run out of money, or we'll see you in 2 years when our visas run out. And so we went to England and we lived in London for 2 years. And it was really healing for both of us. We seen a whole different world than we knew in growing up in Saskatchewan, right? Just seeing things on TV to going and living. And it just really opened our mind to like so much more than we thought was possible for ourselves. And so that's where What I Do started, because in all of that, we decided, you know what, we don't want to go back home and just go back to like our old jobs and our old life. What could we do? And we kind of got into learning online stuff, and people told us, well, your story is powerful and you could probably help a lot of people. So we started kind of exploring that, and we came out of the closet, I guess I'll say, and shared our relationship struggles and the amount of messages that we got from people we knew and people we didn't know, but they were shocked. They were like, I thought you guys had it all together. Like, you portrayed like everything was perfect and you were so happy and everything was so great. And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, we did love each other, but a lot of that was a facade, a protection, right? And so that gave me the idea that more and more women needed this safe space to be seen, be heard, stop pointing the fingers at their partners, do their own work, and take responsibility. So I started my coaching business about 4 years ago. And that is, I guess that's what I do. I'm in this transition phase though, but I coach women in relationships on taking personal responsibility for their own lack of fulfillment in their life. And now my husband and I have started to coach couples together, because what we've seen is the women or the women did the work, created a ripple effect. The men seen that, felt that, right? Felt the energy, felt that shift. And then we're like, if one person in the relationship is open to growing and learning, if they both are, imagine the shift that they can have together if they're both conscious and intentional about that. So we're just in the mix right now of creating more programs and membership and stuff like that coming down the pipeline for couples in relationship. But I still work like alone with women as well, because not all men are there right now. So that's like, I don't know, I'm trying to make it into a nutshell, but that was still kind of long.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate that kind of work. I think that kind of work is definitely needed as individuals, for men and women, and then also for us couples, because, here we are.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate that work, and definitely excited for this episode for us to discuss things, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I think I have a question. Oh no, it happened. Oh, sorry.
Did you lose power?
Sorry. Can you see me?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
It looks like you lost your light, and maybe, I don't know, your internet looks.
Are you frozen? There you are.
What's up with Canada? Come on, you guys.
Some galactic shit happening. Tabby, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh my gosh, I'm back. Okay, sorry. I don't know what's going on. I was gonna ask you about like what are your, like, when you're doing this work and working with other women, and what you're, and when you're like with other women, like what is like the type of self-care that you guys really focus on? Because I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah, I think it's definitely unique to a lot of different women, because some have lots of kids, or well, not lots of kids, some have kids, some don't have any kids. But one of the biggest things that we work on is boundaries and creating that time in that space, but asking. A lot of women that I work with aren't really used to asking for what they need. So, I say that the first thing we really work on is even finding their voice and practicing asking for space to then do self-care, right? And self-care, the typical things, really, like yoga, going for walks, spending time alone, reading a book, having a bath, like whatever that looks like for them. It's all, again, individual, but I don't know if that really answers your question, but basically we first, with a lot of women, have to work on being able to even like create that space or ask for that space for themselves, because they put everyone first.
I love that.
Can I comment on that real quick? I definitely agree with that, because I've been in a situation where my husband's at work. I'm a stay-at-home mom. He comes home. I expect him to realize that I've been at home with my son all day. Like, I just need a break. Like, why should I have to vocalize that? Why do I need to communicate that to you? Like, you already know that. But if he doesn't recognize that mommy needs a break, and he's oblivious to the fact, then I get upset with him. But then if I take a step back and I realize, oh, he really doesn't get it. He's not understanding that I need a break, or he's just not picking up on it. I have to verbalize that to him. So I can't get mad at him at something that he obviously isn't aware of or isn't picking up on. And that's where the communication is a big thing. For me in my relationship, like, I have to communicate that, like, hey, I'm going to take a 3-hour bath. I'll see you guys in a little while,
Yeah.
I'll see you in 3 hours. Or I just feel like that's something that is important, is communication, and then not to expect that your partner is, picking up on your signals, or is understanding what you need in that moment. Like, you have to vocalize that. You have to verbalize that. And so it's important for you, like you said, to help those women find their voice, to be able to say, this is what I need, and I need it like now.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of the women that I work with have troubles with. It's like, they think their partner should read their minds, but like, they don't know unless you ask. And I love men and I love my husband, but he's a little oblivious to what I need, because he lives in he's got a different job. He's doing different things all day. So, how is he to know what I'm thinking that I need in that moment? So yeah, it's totally about asking for what you want. And what we have found in women learning to ask this, because then they have this preconceived notion that they're going to be mad, or they're going to say no, or they're going to be like, what do you need that for? But once they start asking, their partner's just like, yeah, cool.
Right.
For sure. Right. And it just changes, because then there's not that built up resentment, like you were saying, right?
Yeah.
He's not picking up on my cues.
Right.
So then you build up that resentment, and then it comes like blasting out when he does one thing wrong, right? But it wasn't that thing.
Right.
So yeah, that's really huge.
Yeah, it's so important, because then you end up being that kid that's acting out. And why does that kid act out? The kid acts out because he wants attention, so you're slamming doors, and you're slamming cabinets, and you're throwing the dishes around, and you're by the end of, you're just like, okay, he's still not getting it, so you got to say something, raise your hand. Yeah, it just is so important once you realize the tools for communication. And I know every relationship is different, but the tools for communication is so important.
I agree. I think communication, if there's one thing that you need to work on in your relationship, or if you had to pick like one thing, start with communication.
Yeah. We say in our relationship, like, we're just brutally honest. And I don't know if that is like the right way or if it's the wrong way, but I think it's a good way for us in our relationship to communicate because of the type of relationship that we have. Like, we have to be brutally honest with each other. And I have to tell him, like, if he says something that hurts my feelings, or if he says something that upsets me, or if he said, you know, just like a kid, like, you're teaching them, don't do that because you're going to get hurt. You know, well, you have to teach them.
Mhm.
Don't say that because it hurts my feelings. Or, you know, I would prefer you not to do that because, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of concept. You're teaching them how you want to be treated, or your you know, I mean, it's your emotional signals.
Yeah. And I would say that exactly what you said, Summer, is kind of where we're veering more into with my husband and I coaching together to teach the men and the women that. But if I like take that a few steps back, a lot of the women I work with, and myself included at that time, don't know what we want, right? Or didn't know what we wanted, or didn't know how to vocalize that because, again, in our childhoods, you know, we didn't have that space, or we weren't taught, or we didn't witness that. So that's a lot of what my work with women individually is
Yeah.
learning what that even is, because how can you tell your partner if you don't know, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
That makes
So, like, what are the things that you implement or work on with women to develop a healthy communication, especially if maybe they haven't experienced that before, or they come from, you know, I suspect that it goes back to a lot of childhood stuff and like how communication was, you know, in a home. I think that plays a big role. At least that's what I find when I work with women. But what kinds of things do you do so that people can really transform that and, you know, step into like speaking their truth and saying what's on their mind and not feeling like, you know, if I say this, they're gonna fucking leave me, or, you know, if I say this, what if they don't, you know, want to talk to me anymore, or whatever, you know, it might be, depending on like where they're at with on their journey when it comes to something like communication.
Yeah, well, that's really good because I work with women over a 6-month time span so that we can get deep and they learn to trust me and we can go deeper into it. So I used to do smaller amounts, but I was like, no, we're not getting to like the deeper things. So obviously in that time span, we would work on like a lot of more inner child and abandonment issues and learning to build their trust by trying little things, like speaking a little bit and learning that it's safe, right? Like pushing that barrier a little bit every time to learn that they're safe with their partner to express. But one of the biggest things that I found was transformational for Mike and I didn't know we were doing it at the time. But now that I know this stuff and I look back, I'm like, okay, this is exactly what that was. I actually created like a handbook on it. It's under a pile of papers over here, so I can't grab it. But I think it's called like How to Communicate and Be Seen, Heard, A Woman's Guide to Communication, Feeling Seen, Heard, and Validated, or something like that. But it's the masculine and the feminine. I think that's a very great basis point because so if I go into the masculine and the feminine, I'll just start by saying that every woman and man has both of the energies within them, but one person in a relationship is likely one to embody maybe more the feminine, and then the other partner will embody more the masculine, more strongly, or more, that's not the word I want, strongly, more predominantly. And so when it comes to relationships, it's super, super important because a woman, let's say I'm a very feminine core woman. And if my husband Mike comes in the door and I want to talk to him about something, I am just like, blah, 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 blah. And I just like puke it on him. And I'm like, oh yeah, but then that reminds me. And then I'll go off onto something totally different. And then I'm feeling stuff. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and now this. And so a feminine energy is kind of a hurricane. And so all of this stuff is going to come up. Now, if we put that aside and we think of the masculine energy, which in our relationship is more Mike, he's like very linear, very logical, very like critical thinking, and likes to focus on one thing at a time. So he walks in the door and he's just like, holy shit, that is a lot coming at me. Or, sitting down to enjoy supper or wherever, I just kind of blindside him with all of this. He's just like, holy shit, that's a lot. Can't handle it, might get defensive, might get his back up against the wall because I'm also saying like, you did this, or if you said that. So my intention isn't coming across because my intention is very emotional. Where I'm coming from is very emotional because that's where the feminine is. And the masculine is more mind-based, right? So what I have learned is that in using that for communication, it can be a huge shift for communicating, because then as a woman, if I have something that's coming up for me, I'm like, that I know I need to talk about with Mike, or just even something that's bothering me. I don't do this anymore because I feel I got it pretty well down pat, but I used to do this. Go to my journal, start writing it out. Like, what is bothering me? Why is this bothering me? Is this mine? Does this have something to do with Mike? Because oftentimes it's a trigger of myself. And he just highlighted that, right? So if he highlighted it, that's okay, because I can still come and have a chat with him about it, but not from like a blaming perspective. But I might also learn that this actually has nothing to do with him. And this is all about my childhood or someone at work or whatever, right? And I may just work through that myself. And I'm like, cool, I'm calm, I'm good. I don't need to actually talk about it. But at the same time, if it is something that maybe, Mike has done consistently, or there was a trigger, or there's something I want to address with him, I do it when I'm cool, calm, and collected. Like, I've kind of worked through my emotions, and then I'll ask him like, hey babe, do you have the space to chat about this right now? Or do you want to plan after supper once we have our son to bed and we can chat about this? There's just something that's on my heart or on my mind that I wanted to chat about. And he'll be like, yeah, okay, because he'll have some time to kind of process it, right? And then so I'll bring it to him, and I won't say, you did this, or when you do this. It's more, I feel, right? On this occasion, I felt this. And so I'm owning my feelings. And then I don't tell him like, what are you going to do about it? Or like, I want you to do this about it. We need to fix this. It's like we come together and we both kind of process it and talk about what a solution could be, if there needs to be a solution. Sometimes it just needs to be aired, but if there is a solution. And then the one thing that I find a lot of people skip is a follow-up. So like, if there was something that they wanted to work on changing, or, when you say certain things that I feel this, so is there a way we could reframe this? Is a follow-up, like a week or two later, where you can come back together and be like, how did that work for us? Like, how did you feel? How did I feel? So in saying all this, that doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process to get there. But I made that for women because I wanted to show them that the way you own your stuff and then show up creates a huge ripple effect and changes the dance of the whole relationship, because he can't keep doing the same overreaction if you're not feeding it, right? Or you're changing things. So
Yeah.
so that's my really long-winded version on communication.
No, that's great.
Did we lost Shaylin?
Yeah, she's having trouble where she is. The power's out in the north, so she's having some technical difficulties today.
Shoot.
We love you, Shaylin.
We love you.
Okay, first off, I have a question. So how long have you been married for? Because I think that'll help with our viewers.
We are coming up to our 11th wedding anniversary in June.
Okay.
We've been together for 17 years.
Okay. So I have a question. I have been with my husband for 22 years, and we'll be married for 20 years this Christmas Eve.
Cool.
So how do I how would you suggest to continue to be in a like desirable relationship with just desire just to be like, oh, because at some point people ask me, the question like, oh, how do you guys do it? I can't believe you've been together for so long. I feel like my husband and I, our relationship is very different. It's very unique. I met him when I was 19. We got married when I was 22. And I'll be 42, and that equals 20 years married. So I was explaining this to Rachel, like, we've gone through many transitions in our relationship. I'm not 19 anymore, so I've grown and I've changed and I've evolved, as well as him. He's grown, he's changed, he's evolved. And then, so that means that our marriage has to do the same. And I'm not 19. I'm going to be 42. So yeah, my desires are different. And something about being in a relationship and how not to have the feeling of a roommate, but your partner, your lover, your mate, your spouse, whatever. It's definitely
Bang.
Your what?
When you bang.
Yes. All of that good stuff. But how do you keep that in a fresh light?
So creating more intimacy. Is this what we're saying? Like intimacy, passion, connection?
Yeah, because, I'm content in my relationship, I feel like, and right now, like where I'm at, I'm content. Like, I don't feel like I have to have sex all the time to validate my relationship. But my husband, on the other hand, might feel the need to have sex because first, he's a man, and secondly, I feel like that is what he feels is validating in a relationship, like that I love him, that I need him, that I appreciate him. But that's never been my mentality. Never.
You mean your mentality that you need that, or
no, that has never been my mentality in a relationship of validation. I don't feel like I ever required to have sex to validate a relationship. I did it because I enjoyed it, because I wanted to, because, not that I don't enjoy it now. I just feel like,
So question for you, would you rather have like a really intimate conversation with him and share like your emotions? Do you guys?
we do that.
Yeah. And does that feel good for you? Connected?
I think maybe that's the thing. It's hard for us to connect because we're so used to having alternate schedules, and we're so we have an 8-year-old son. He'll be 9 in October. He is our center, and he is not, deprived of our time or neglected of our time. He is like our focus. And I think that's what it is needing to kind of transfer that a little bit and to focus more and allow our relationship to be our center. But at the same time, I'm just like, it's having to make the choice to put in the effort. And I understand that that's what it is. And that's probably what we're going to need to have to do.
That's totally what I was going to say. It's a choice, right? It's a choice to have that conversation, to explore things that excite you guys, and then the choice to do it. And I don't mean do it like have sex. I mean, do it like do the thing that you want to do. Because for anyone listening, most men connect, and I'm not saying all men, but most men connect through physical intimacy. Like that is how they feel connected to their partner.
Yeah.
But the problem is that most women feel connected first through talk, through communication, through sharing their emotions.
Right.
And then when they feel they get that, then they open their body, right? Like, I feel safe. Okay, I let you in, kind of thing.
Right.
But the man is like you're saying, validated. It's like, this, like, that's what they do, that's what they feel good, right? And so if they're not getting it, then they're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So I think communication is super key there. Like, my husband and I have had major conversations around that, because I've gone through a lot of pelvic issues where I didn't have any desire to have sex. In fact, it hurt. But at first I would just shut him out and not tell him. And then he would think he was being rejected. And there was just this whole like disconnect. But then as soon as I started sharing, it's like, it's not that I don't want you. It's just more that I have these issues going on. And that changed everything. And then he could say to me, well, we don't need to have sex. Like, there's other ways to get physically intimate without having sex. Like, I just want to see you get undressed with some dim light on. Like, I just want to look at your body. Like, for them, it can be in all sort of different ways. It is just intimately, right? Whereas in our heads, going back to before, where we're like, we're not reading each other's minds unless we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But coming back to that, like, putting your son at the center, that was something that I thought too when I first had our son. He's 4. But then I realized, I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't really going to work, because what I've seen is so many people, when their kids graduate or leave the nest, they split up, because they're like, we put our kid first, we didn't really work on us, and we're roommates, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And so that's for me where that shift kind of came in, where I was like, okay, here's my new like hierarchy, where at the very top of it is me, because I have to feel good and be taken care of so that I can show up for then the next part of it, which is my relationship. And then because my husband and I are then a team, and then we can show up for our son, right? So our son is actually at the bottom. Like, with that being said, we would obviously do anything and everything, and like, we do so much with him and for him, but we're consciously taking time for ourselves and then for each other so that he can have us. And to me, that's so important, because my parents divorced when I was 3, and like my whole life, I just wanted them to be together. So I feel like part of me, needs to be there and do everything for him. And I used to hate leaving him, like, to go on a date and he was crying. But then I was like, no, if I can look past this one moment, I am actually giving him a bigger gift in the future, right? By going and bonding with my husband. And bringing in that excitement can be, in the bedroom, if you want to try some different things, or it can be doing something new and fun together that you've never done, something that gets you out of your comfort zone and like makes you scared and makes you giggle. And like, he needs to protect you, because that's the other thing. The masculine is like, wants to protect you, and you want to be protected. The feminine wants to be protected. So, I mean, if you can find dates to do, adventures, things like that, where you're going out and having fun, but also being a little bit scared, out of your comfort zone. It's energetically, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you can't see, that's creating a polarity between the two of you that is upping that angst, or not the angst, upping that passion and that connection.
I think it would take a lot for this relationship. Well, because I just feel like you said, like taking something out of your comfort zone. Like, we go off-roading, I ride dirt bikes, we jump out of airplanes. My husband is, MMA professional fighter, traveled the world, like, so I don't even know what we would have to do to make that happen.
Climb Mount Everest or
right.
something.
But yeah,
Shades of gray.
Girl,
right?
Give me some whips, okay? I will tie him up in a minute.
Have you guys ever explored like tantric or anything like that? Like even tantric touch, tantric massage?
No, and what does this say? I don't have my glasses, guys. You're gonna have to help me. but no, not really. And I feel like because what I would classify as like a conservative, um, yeah. But I mean, and I'm not. And then when I've tried certain things, so like, where did you learn that, or where did you see that? And it makes me feel like embarrassed or something, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. So yeah, it's just I mean, maybe we can try to revisit that and have a discussion about that or something.
But what if you like fully owned that and you were like,
oh, I do.
Okay. And so is he turned off by that, or is he excited about that, even though he's like, where did you learn that?
Well, you know what? It's hard to tell because I didn't really pursue after that. I felt because he was questioning it, I kind of felt like it was like either he was shocked, and it wasn't something that like kind of took off like I expected it to, and then it kind of took me back a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, I just won't try that then ever again.
And did you guys ever have a conversation about it after?
Not really, because I just kind of like already felt like I knew the direction he was in his comfort, and that's why I classified him as conservative, and so I didn't really kind of go further than that. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. But but I would be more than happy to revisit that. Maybe that would be something that would kind of like reignite my idea of desire, reignite my idea of, yeah. So
totally. And it kind of goes back to the communication thing about what do we need. So it's not just I need some self-care time, but there can be conversation with your partner about I need a little excitement. I'm craving some of this. Like, are you game? Are you open to this? Right. And just planting seeds. Well, you could take that however you want, but planting seeds first. Right. Maybe not planting like actual seeds, but you know what I mean? Like just putting it out there and getting kind of building the excitement around it. Just an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see.
But that's again, like finding your voice, right? Like because that made you feel uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. And, I kind of felt like I said, I was just kind of taken back. It didn't like have the response that I was expecting. And so I just kind of like, was like, okay, well, I won't try that, made me feel embarrassed, but maybe that's something that I can revisit and we can talk about, but yeah, like that's something that I realize that is a part of me, and
time to embrace it, right?
I ain't getting any younger, that's for sure.
You'll have to keep me posted on how that goes.
I will. You can do that with me, Summer.
Huh?
But you can do that with me.
Okay. Yeah.
Happy, do you want to read Omaha Play's comment?
Sure. Words are powerful. How you use them, how accentuate them to reach an understanding takes patience. Don't ever stop being teachable.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's huge. Yeah.
I wonder, I was just kind of like just thinking about like the concept of love languages, and I'm not sure if you like touch that like a little bit, but if you do, can you talk about that? Because I think, yeah.
You think what?
Oh, it's just like I know what my love language, like I know what Berkeley's love language is, and I know like my partner, and I know what he does, and that's how he expresses his love. But then I was kind of thinking of like, what is my love language? And I think I'm like, I love to cuddle. And I'm like, I need to be in their like space to like show affection. And I think that's what my love language is. But I just wanted to like, but when I asked Berkeley, I was just like, what's your love language? He's just like, so I was just wondering what you thought about that.
I think the love languages are a really great tool to utilize in your relationship. I don't really go much into that with my coaching, but I do always talk about with my girls to find out theirs if they don't know it. But I do this with them, and anyone who's listening, it's kind of a fun little thing to do with your partner. Even you can go to Gary Chapman's website and you can do a little quiz, and you can each do it, and that could be like a little date night or something where it's not just like, hey, what's your thing, or here's the link, you go do it. It's kind of like, let's do this together. And then it's kind of a fun little opportunity to get to know each other deeper and understand, because I think us, not all, but just the women I work with, they're the ones who are really into that. And then the men are kind of just like, whatever. But I think if they're a part of the process and the journey, and they're kind of understanding why this matters, and then you can kind of have that conversation around it, they're more inclined to be open to it and then be like, oh, okay, I get this. So, because one of the things we often give our partner our love language, like you like to cuddle, so you may always try to cuddle Berkeley, but he might be like, I need some space, dude, right?
Yeah.
He likes words of affirmations, or he prefers gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it is a really cool thing to do with your partner, and then then make an effort after that to
Most important love languages that you would kind of consider, needing to be kind of displayed in your relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like I need that. And Berkeley understands that, which is really great. And most of the time he doesn't push me away, but sometimes he's just like, get away from me for a minute, please. And I always respect that. Sometimes like inside I'm like a little bit wounded, and then I'm like, okay, I'm taking this way too personally. Like he is a human being with his own feelings, and he needs to get back up. And so I do, but it's just, that is definitely one of my love languages. But I think maybe I'm going to take this, this quiz.
Yeah.
And it's called 5lovelanguages.com.
Is that where it is? I know it's Gary Chapman's website, but I don't know if it's garychapman.com or if it's 5 Love Languages. If you just Google 5 Love Language quiz, it'll come up.
Cool.
Rachel, what do you think yours is? What do you think your love language is?
I would have to say like action. I don't know if that is even a love language, but your words and what you're telling me and what you're speaking, that truth needs to align with the action part of that. Like that's really important to me, because I have a lot of experiences where I was told certain things or told things and lied to a lot, or people try to lie to me, but it's really hard because I'm fucking psychic. And so it's just like it just frustrates me sometimes when I'd rather just hear the truth, like straight up and blunt. But like if if you're going to say something and you're going to keep saying something and then you're not doing that to back it up, like that, all that talk kind of shit. So it's, I would say like more alignment with action, and like your words aligning with that, and your truth aligning with what you're actually showing up with.
So the person to be accountable.
Yeah, definitely accountability. Like, I don't want a fucking project, like, I don't want me to sound so harsh, like, but I want people to understand that their work is their work, like what what Shaylin said last week when we talked about like that seek to serve yourself. And I think I fucked up the quote last week, but so you can seek to serve each other. Like
Yeah.
that to me rings so loud because you can't just serve in a relationship and give, and then you're not being met with that, right? You're not being like, there's no balance there. There's no reciprocity. And so I find that I've had experiences of always like giving, and that I became resentful for that, and then just didn't want to fucking give anything at all, right? So it's like being really mindful of that and those patterns, but I think accountability, yeah, like action aligning with what it is that you're saying, and is really important. So I don't really know if that's a love language because I'm not really sure what they are, but just little things like that. What about you, Summer?
Me?
What about you? Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't even know because I feel like I don't require like physical affection, which is maybe my like Leo, like I'm gonna do it all by myself kind of attitude. Like but I also feel like that's kind of been the conditioning of our relationship. So I don't know what my love language would be. And what I mean by the conditioning of our relationship, like Brian and I, we've both been very independent people. He's had the freedom of pursuing his career, whether it was fighting mixed martial arts, traveling the world, or being private security in Afghanistan and Iraq for years and years and years. You know, so not having him there allowed me to be independent and, you know, just depending on myself for like the love and affection and happiness and all that stuff. And now like he's kind of done with all that. And now that he's here, he's like, what about me? And I'm like, yeah, what about you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we've had this discussion before about a relationship. We've been very open about it. And so in that sense, that's why I say the conditioning of our relationship, that's where we're at right now. It's because of the lifestyle that he chose to lead and the lifestyle that I continue to follow and the lifestyle that I also led myself. So I don't know what my love language is. I like people, I like him to tell me. So maybe I'm more of a verbal person rather than needing to receive physical affection. Babe, the house looks good today. You know, I really like what you're doing, you know, or just those positive things where because words to me are just as powerful as actions, I guess. So yeah, I think it's the verbal part that is kind of like my love language, I guess.
Mm.
And that's words of affirmations. I just Googled them quickly because I know like a handful.
Okay.
I think there is only 5, but words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and receiving gifts are the 5 of them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Words of affirmation then, because
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, that would be it.
I think it's also cool to mention that I don't know if he talks about this, but I personally think that they can change because you go through different seasons of life, and obviously we're shedding layers of ourselves as well. And so what we might have needed or appreciated 6 weeks ago or 6 years ago is going to be different than now.
Yeah.
And I know that for myself because before I had my son, I loved physical touch and we would cuddle all the time. And I love that. But ever since I've had my son, I'm like, get your hands off me. Like there's someone always touching me. I just need some space.
Right.
And I used to be like, don't waste your money on flowers. Like that's stupid. Whereas now I'm like, it should be nice if you would just walk in the door with some flowers. I have like a different role and a different job now around the house and I don't leave the house much. And so I think for me personally, they've changed. That's why I think, they can change.
Yeah, I think so too. You're right.
I like the acts of service. That kind of sounds more what I was trying to say, I think. And it's interesting because I parallel that to my relationship with my father. He wasn't very affectionate in our home growing up. He was, quite the opposite. There was not really any I love yous and that kind of stuff. We were dealing with a lot of intergenerational trauma in our home and stuff. And so, but as I got older, I started to realize his acts of service was like how he showed that he loved me, and that he loved us. And it is like little, like those things where he'd come and dig me out of the fucking snow or like I'd wake up one day and I look, here's shoveling and he's shoveling my driveway. I haven't even talked to him that day. Like those kinds of things I appreciate so much, like from the bottom of my heart when I see my dad showing up in that way, because in my mind, as a little girl or a wounded inner child perspective, I didn't think my dad was really there for me. I didn't think he really loved me. I didn't know if he loved me because he never told me he loved me. It wasn't really that kind of a thing. But as I got older, I started to heal, and do my own work and on myself, and was like, oh, I really love that and appreciate that. Like that is important to me. It doesn't always have to be like, I love you, give me a hug, even though, you can incorporate that, and you can work through those things and, expand on that. But yeah, acts of service makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I relate to what you said so strongly, because I thought the same thing. I could count on one hand how many times my dad told me he loved me. And so that was a problem for me, because obviously for me, it was words of affirmation at that time. But same, now that I'm older, I'm like, my whole life, my dad would give me the shirt off his back. And just as you said, be there doing all the things, show up for anything, right? So it is kind of cool. And on that note, I think it's also then cool to know what your children's love languages are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if our dads knew that, then they probably would have told us they loved us more, right? But they had no idea, and we had no idea. So I just think that's kind of a cool thing to figure out with your kids too.
Good point. Yeah, I love that. I just want to throw up a viewer's question here for you. Sorry, I'm cutting off your face. It's long, so I'll read it and then I'll take it down. Ginger's asking or sharing, I'm in an 8-year relationship. We were friends for many years before. Now we're with 2 kids, both in recovery, in therapy and AA. We're doing so much work. However, I still feel our walls from childhood and past relationships are still up. Do you recommend anything else we can do to taking them down? I know there's lots of love, but I use our kids or anything to not get too close to him. He deserves more. I deserve more. We deserve one another. Great podcast, ladies. Thank you in advance. So thank you so much, Ginger, for your vulnerability.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually working on something similar with one of my clients right now. And we're really kind of struggling to get to the root, because there's a lot to kind of a lot of protection going on, a lot of walls up to not get hurt again. So, without knowing someone personally and being able to have a conversation and knowing specifics, it is a little bit hard to dive into that deeper stuff. But can you bring it up one more time, please, Rachel?
Yes.
I just want to see. I want to read just the middle part. Okay, so this is just something that just came to me, which I'm like you, Rachel. Well, I don't say I'm psychic. I don't think I'm psychic, but I definitely, with my clients, that sounded wrong to say. I don't think I'm psychic. I just don't feel I'm psychic. But when I work with my clients, I'm always like, I just got this kind of knowing come through or thing come through. So I'm just going to say it, and it might make sense to you and it might not. I don't know. But one of the things that I've realized in healing work, and I went to, what was it called now? Not Al-Anon, right? What's Codependence Anonymous. So the 12 steps for that. And Mike went through some AA. And then we've both done a lot of work on ourselves. But sometimes I think we can really get lost in the work and get really serious about it and really consumed by it instead of living life and focusing on having some fun and creating some memories, having some experiences. So I think, yes, we need to concentrate on the healing and forgiveness and doing all of that stuff to shift. But I also think that we forget that playing is healing, laughing is healing, all of those kinds of things. So sometimes like getting out of our own way and going with our partners. That's why I said that, getting out of your comfort zone, like something that just makes you laugh and reconnect in different ways to rekindle that passion and that love. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's just kind of what came when I read that.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment, like that's kind of what I felt too. It's like we think it's important to not have the perception or shift out of the perception of feeling like there's something wrong with you or there's something that you need to fix, right? And understanding that you don't need to fix anything. You're actually, what you're doing is you're coming back to yourself in a way where you're learning to love and accept all of those parts of you that maybe you didn't before. And so, like you said, that's about forgiveness and the healing, but it's not, I think it's like doing this work, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then things are going to be like this, right? That's not, I don't feel like that is how it goes. It's more like, I'm going to process this and be gentle with myself and allow this to be what it needs to be right now and not judge myself for it and love myself through this. And then whatever comes after that and how that unfolds, that's just going to happen. I don't have to do anything to make that happen. I don't have to try to control that. But so we can like get into our heads, right? So much. But like I totally agree with you, like the joy, the fun, the play, like finding those things that you remember that that bring you those feelings, because it's the feelings that's going to shift you and to shift the relationship. That's just kind of what I was getting from that, which is very similar, but
yeah. Totally. And I can actually, I don't know if this will help her, but in that 3-month time frame when I was like leaving my husband and just working on myself, I was so focused on that. And he said to me, we were driving down the road and he said, a motorbike drove past and he was like, man, I really wish that I could get a motorbike. And I looked at him and I was like, well, why don't you get a motorbike? And he said, because you've always said we can't afford one or they're too dangerous. And like basically I told him he couldn't get one. And I didn't even realize I was doing that, but it was like a subconscious control. I was doing it from safety, but it was actually like holding him and restraining him. He got a motorbike within 2 weeks, didn't even have a license, had his license within like 3 weeks. He rode that freaking thing like every day, all day, every chance he could. He drank way less because he actually had something he was excited about and something that a hobby, right? Something that brought him joy. So it wasn't reading a book and doing more work. It was out on the open road, feeling the air on his face, right? And we have a few stories like that, but that just, I think, confirms what Rachel and I are saying, like, kind of forget about the work for a little bit and have some fun.
Yeah. That's good advice for sure.
yeah, thank you, Ginger, for your question and your sharing. And Laura for your response.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any more questions? I know this Shay's so sad that she couldn't get on the show. She said she's really sorry, but I feel like she's still here with us,
I'm kind of like speechless right now. Like I love just listening to you talk, Laura. and like letting us know. And it kind of like, I don't know, for myself, like I've been working really hard to like move out of like where I was before in my life, where it was like there's a lot of toxicity and like normalized behaviors that I was like bringing into like previous relationships. And like when I met Berkeley and was, faced with a lot of like adversity and intersectionality and what relationships should look like. I didn't really understand what a healthy relationship was. And I think like I'm definitely getting there. I know that I'm not completely there yet, but I just really appreciate your perspective on like focusing on like empowering the woman in that. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. That's huge. I want to say, I don't think we ever get there.
Yeah.
I'm not there. Mike and I are
Mhm.
always going deeper. And that's, I think, the cool part is like, there's always another layer. But again, not having to focus on that because like Rachel was saying, just being here now, right? And being with the now. But I'm really happy. I've cried in my sleep many times in those years with Mike when I was super unhappy, when he'd be out drinking and I was like, I'm so done with this. And what do I do? Where did I go wrong? How did I get here kind of thing? And I always sit here now and I say, I would do that 1,000,000 times over to know that I can sit across from a woman now over Zoom. Well, who am I kidding? I always did it over Zoom even before COVID, but and be able to hold that space for a woman. And I know exactly how she feels. I would do it 100 times, 1,000,000 times over again.
Yeah.
So that I think is a great, segue into whatever you're dealing with right now, the struggle, the pain. It can be your biggest purpose too, your biggest miracle when you allow yourself to surrender and to move through it and learn what it's teaching you as well. Yeah.
Another thing that I have learned. Oh, were you done?
No, I was just going to ask a question, but go.
Another thing that I have learned in a long-term relationship is trying to let go of ego. And because, he could be this person, I could be this person. And if we both think that we're right all the time, no one is going to get anywhere, And so I think it's like letting our egos go and being like, yeah, you're right, or and when he says that to me, oh my God, let the heavens open up, but for me, it's been a lesson letting go of ego and being like, yeah, you're right, babe, and not feeling bad that I was wrong, and that is, I think, the maturity coming out in our relationship and taking accountability for our actions, or, just being like, yeah, you're right, and this is where I'm at, and I'm letting my ego go. And I feel like that has been a lesson for us and in our communication too. It's been a huge thing, because if not, we would both just be fighting because we both want to be right. And yeah, hello, 20 years later, you're figuring it out.
Right? It's a journey. It's all about the journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions, and one actually kind of ties into that. So long-term relationships, right? It was a choice to put in the work and, do it together. At what point would you say, like, it's time to release that? Like, how does somebody know, right? Like, do you teach or like guide women back to themselves into trusting their intuition about like, I think it's time to release this and then allow myself to go on a new path, right? So like, how does somebody know that, I think this is time to move on from this?
Yeah, we totally do that. One of the modules I have created for like my program, but then obviously we work together and in between is strengthening and trusting your intuition and inner child work and stories and narratives and all that kind of stuff, right? So as we get towards the end of our time together, if there's no shifts in the relationship happening, that woman has built confidence in herself, not only to trust her intuition, but also confidence in knowing that she could leave. And I'm like her biggest supporter. I'm straight up with my ladies the second that they like have a call with me. I can't fix your relationship. I don't know if you're going to be together or you're not, but I'm not concerned. I'm here to love and care for you, and you're going to be okay no matter what. And so those are very open, honest conversations the whole time about what are you feeling? Where are you at? What's going on? And I'm their sounding board where they can feel safe to share that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always very encouraging of doing what feels right. And I will ask them certain questions and help them to learn to trust themselves in knowing. Like I've had a few clients where they're like, I think I want to leave my partner, but I also want to know that I've done everything that I could before I do. And so we go through all of that work. And then at the end, some have chosen to leave or some partners have left them. But at the end of the day, my goal is to build them up that they're okay. And that they know they're okay and that they deserve this relationship that they desire. There's a lot of times coming into it. I think that's the belief and the deservability isn't really there. So we build that. And then it is like, okay, I deserve better than this. And he's not trying. Or it's like I've shifted and now I respect myself more. So he respects me more. And they go off and be more like me and Mike, right? But I'm always very honest because people are attracted to our story, especially thinking like, oh, well, she shifted her relationship and now they're really happy. So I could do that. But I'm straight up like, that's my story, not your story. This is your journey, right? Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yeah.
Lots of intuition work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Self-belief, self-love. Yeah.
I have more questions if anyone doesn't have any questions. I so many questions.
Go ahead.
I'm like, I was saying in the comments, it's like free coaching with Laura. Like, why would we not ask all these questions? And I have another question. So what are practical suggestions and ways for others to reclaim value who have experienced low self-worth relationships?
Sorry, say it one more time.
So what are some practical suggestions that you have for others or ways that others can apply in their own lives when it comes to reclaiming, their value after being in a relationship or a previous relationship or experiencing low self-worth? So sometimes, for example, maybe somebody was in what would be considered an abusive relationship, and then they entered another relationship down the road, and maybe have some things that they're still processing, some triggers even. Do you have, like, what are some ways that people can reclaim that value and while trying to like develop a new relationship with somebody? Because I feel like people are going to get triggered. And so do you think, okay, now I'm getting into two questions. And then do you think you can start a relationship with somebody if you've been triggered in some way?
Because of that person.
Not because of that person, but like I don't want to say because of that person, because I don't believe in like, you did this, so now I feel like this, right? I mean like feeling triggered by something, maybe a behavior or whatever, like the reaction that we would have, right? So if we're in reaction and triggered by somebody that we potentially would start a relationship or like, right? If people go on dates or something like that and they meet, do you think that they can actually start a relationship in that way? Because I mean, everybody's always healing through shit, right? So I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on those two very long questions.
I personally think you can, because if we like ran away every time we were triggered by something, then we would probably be all alone, right? spill your drink.
Yeah, sorry.
So I think there's power in leaning into those triggers, and not necessarily having to share it with the new person or the person you're in relationship with, kind of going back to that communication factor before of what is this? Where is this coming from? Is this something within me? Is this something, within my patterns? But I really do believe that we're going to be triggered our whole lives. Obviously, as we maybe do more work, we won't be as triggered or as deeply, or we have the tools to move through it a little bit easier. But I think triggers are an amazing opportunity to learn more about ourselves. So if we're in relationship with a new person and being triggered, I don't think that it's necessarily, means run in the other direction or anything. It's a get curious, right? Get curious about yourself. Mm-hmm. But some practical things, I think that it's really important to get clear on what you want in your relationship. And sometimes, a lot of times, we don't know what we want, but we know what we don't want. So if you just left like a toxic relationship, you know what you didn't like in there. So you can make a list of all of that and then shift that to help you discover all of the things that you do want. And then I'm really big on like future self journaling and picturing yourself as that person. So if I want this list of these amazing qualities or characteristics in a person or a relationship, I have to match that vibration, right? I can't just go from being here to there. So then I would maybe pick a couple of the things and I would journal on them every morning and just talk like affirmations and journal on it and visualize myself being this person who has boundaries, who speaks my truth, who asks for what I want, who says no when I want to say no, or says yes when I want to say yes, right? So not picking all of those things all at once, though. It's like one thing, almost like the slower you go, the faster you get there. So that's not like, I guess, a super practical, specific thing. But, well, is it practical? I think that's practical, but it's not specific.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I will just say one of my clients I worked with, she had left her relationship. Her partner had actually had an affair and they were married and they had a kid together. And then she was in a new relationship, but she couldn't move forward in her relationship with her new partner, who was amazing because she held on to too much like anger and just way too much emotion to her ex. And she knew it. And so we just ended up working on a lot of forgiveness and focusing on letting go and love and compassion for her ex-partner and knowing that it brought her to be with her new partner who treats her amazing and is an amazing human being. And as she was able to let that go, then she allowed herself to believe she deserved this man who wouldn't cheat on her, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, again, each individual circumstance is going to be different, but I would go with the list. Like what I know what I don't want, what do I want? And then pick a couple of those things and focus on matching that vibration, right? Because like I said earlier, if I don't respect myself, why would my partner respect me? So how do I respect myself? By making a commitment to myself and following through on it every single day, whether that means drinking 1 cup of water. That can be the commitment every single day for 30 days. It's so little, and most people are like, that's not enough. But yes, it is. That's a commitment you made to yourself that you will do for 30 days. And at the end of those 30 days, you're like, fuck yeah, I just totally like followed through on something. And now I'm a person who drinks this much water every day, or a glass of water. And now I believe I'm that person. So then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That kind of reminded me of like what I tried doing in my relationship. And sometimes I do get triggered, and then I do like put that like perpetuation of what I'm thinking in my head onto my partner. And I have to remind myself like constantly that is not what's happening. Like that he is not that person. He is not that memory. He's not a part of that process. That was something from my past. And sometimes I just verbally say it to him. I was just like, like right now I'm being triggered and I'm perpetuating this awful, awful thing onto you. But I need a minute to like gather myself and come back to myself and not be, not be triggered by you. And maybe that's another thing that could work well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think not all people are going to have that safe space like for their partner to be able to receive that. But if you have a partner who can receive that, I think that is amazing because you're letting them in. That's a vulnerability as well, right? Like you are literally opening your heart and letting them in. And so that's an opportunity to grow closer, but then also grow together too. That's something I had to do with my husband because his drinking was a problem for us, and he would say one thing but then do another. And so even now to this day, it's freaking like 8-9 years, if he were to say like I'm gonna go for a beer after work with the boys, I automatically go back to all of that old stuff and all of the thoughts racing, and I can feel it in my body and my heart races and I just get sweaty. So and then I'm like thinking of all of the terrible things that could happen. But I've opened up to him and I've told him that because we have to rebuild the trust. And obviously I have to like reprogram my nervous system continuously to let that go. But because I can share that with him, he now knows. And then he's like, okay, hey, I'm going to go for 2 beers with the boys and I will be home at 6. And he knows that it's very important to be home at 6 because we're building trust. So it's something we're working on together. But I think opening yourself up is huge.
I think that is important. I think what you both are kind of saying is what story are we telling ourselves? So like in our relationships, what is the narrative that we are telling ourselves about our partner? And Brian has done that a couple times where he's upset about something and, you know, maybe we were intimate for a couple nights and now he's upset or frustrated or whatever. Then he starts telling himself the story in his head. You know, maybe she doesn't love me anymore. I'm getting older. I look different. Maybe she wants to be with somebody else, you know, and like starts telling him he starts telling himself all these things. And I've started even just saying, what story are you telling yourself today? Because I'm not going to be, you know, not that I'm not going to be around bullshit because it's not bullshit. It's part of his feeling and his emotion. And I want to validate that as much as I want him to validate me. So I recognize it. I'm not going to ignore. I understand, you know, I'm picking up on the things that he may be going through. So I'll just bring it to the surface. And I'm like, what are you telling yourself? You know, because probably the chances are that your narrative that you're speaking to yourself right now is not true. So let's talk about it. So you know, that's something that I put forth in our relationship. And that's where when I talked about the brutal truth, you know, us being brutally truthful with each other, that's part of that, you know, and be like, oh, I could just be like, well, what's up with his ass today? What's wrong with him today? You know, but I want to address the issue. So I'm bringing it to the surface and I'm like, you're telling yourself a story that's not true, you know, so let's talk about it. Let's discuss it.
That's awesome. It's totally a pattern interruption, right? Like he's unconsciously doing this, like we all are, but when you are like, what's the story? He's interrupted, right? And he's like, got to be jolted kind of and be like, what? Right, yeah, okay. And oftentimes those stories that we tell ourselves, as soon as we start saying it out loud, we're like, I'm embarrassed because this sounds ridiculous.
Right.
But yet we can tell ourselves over and over and over again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you guys do that.
Yeah, that's important. That's like a big thing, you know? So yeah, I feel like, but that's just a part of us recognizing certain things, picking up on, you know, like where I know something, you know, you don't have to slam cabinets for me to know that you're upset, you know, that's me just picking up on that emotion or that feeling, or even like there's been a shift in my environment. What the heck's going on? You know, I want to address that. I want to bring it to the surface rather than me just be like, the heck's his problem today? So that goes back to communication. And I feel like that's something that is also so important.
Yeah, totally. I think it's cool that as you grow in your relationship, and we've talked about this, like you just get more comfortable to, it's like the next layer, the next step. But like that didn't happen overnight, right? Summer, it took you some time to get to that. Like you've been in a relationship for 22 years. So it doesn't just happen overnight, but it starts with something, with one choice, one action, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
I like that. Right.
Yeah. I think some people listening, and I know I would have 10 years ago been like, yeah, right. Like that's never going to happen. So I think it's great to have a vision, but at the same time, scale it back and be like, okay, one step, like here's the whole staircase. I just got to do one step right now because otherwise it's too overwhelming. And then we do nothing.
Right.
We make no change. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's really helpful because I've noticed, or like I realized a pattern of mine before where like, something like that summer, like slamming cupboards and, doing that sort of like external thing.
Yeah.
That I'm very sensitive. So those things would be triggering. I would be like fucking out. Like, I'm like, I'm out. I don't need this shit because I don't need it. I don't need you. Like, whereas like, I could see that that's not necessarily a healthy pattern, right? It's a response. It's a reaction, right? A trauma reaction kind of thing. But as I listen to you share these things, it's like, oh yeah, you can catch those things, interrupt those stories, catch those stories, shift them, be conscious of what's unconscious. Come back into the moment. Remember, it's just a story, that it's not real. And like really just put space around yourself. Yeah. And I think that's helped me, even like in the last year, I had a previous relationship with somebody and she, it was like, I was just like done after like one, like, like one fucking thing. And I'm like, I don't need this. I'm done. Like, and, eventually we came back together, but it was like the gift from that, right? The gift that she showed me about myself so that I could evolve even more and I could shift out of those things. I don't see any relationship that I've had with anybody as like a negative thing, right? There's a lot of gifts in that. And so, now I feel like I'm at the place where I wouldn't just like shut something down so fast. Mm-hmm. When you talk about like recognizing those things.
You were here for the shift.
Yes. And
you were shifting, and that's so amazing. I just had that conversation with Burke like 4 days ago where I don't feel like I need to like run away from my relationship. And like but previous to this relationship, I always felt like, one more thing and I'm leaving. One more thing and I'm leaving. And like I haven't had to have that thought, and I don't want to have that thought because it's not that I need him. I want him, and I want him to want me too. So that's cool. Good for you, Rach.
Yeah. Thanks. That's awesome.
Growing up.
I think once you do this work on yourself, right, you have so much more compassion for yourself, and then you're able to have more compassion for your partner and see them as this human being as well, who's just as fucked up as you are. And so you're not really putting them on this pedestal of thinking they should be perfect or have all their shit together. And then I know for Mike and I, that shifted so much because it was just like, I can wrap my arms around you and hold you like a little baby if you need to cry. But then the next moment I need you to go chop some wood and be like my manly man kind of thing. Right. But we can do all the dynamics and it's all okay because actually I just started doing breath work. I took my breath work facilitator course a couple of weeks ago and they were like, you shouldn't practice on your partner because you can trigger them. They can trigger you. You may not be able to hold that space for them. It's a very vulnerable session. I was like, no, we can do it. And so we did it. And it was beautiful. Like I held him and he didn't cry. He didn't open up in that session, but I'm going to do more on him. But I was almost crying because I was sitting behind him and getting him to breathe and telling him his affirmations and working through and just holding that space with him. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like, it brought us closer together. So again, 10 years ago, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always an evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry.
It's important for those kinds of connections. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to say, Rach?
I was just going to say, you said we're both human, we're both fucked up. I said, or you can see them as the God or the creator.
That's right.
That, that they are and that you are. And remember that, yeah, you're human, but you're also more than that. And so I think seeing that in other people has helped me really shift into that compassion, right? The compassion and holding space and allowing people to move through whenever they need to, and same with yourself. But
yeah,
totally.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Okay, let's just say, and any relationship that you want to work, whether it's family, like family, yes, but like friendships and intimate relationships, it's just, if you want to continue to be connected and stay connected and evolve and grow and all that stuff, I just feel like it's a ton of work. And but the ultimate goal is that you're, like Tapi was saying, I want to want you and I want you to want me, and the ultimate goal is that connection that Laura is sharing, and you're going to get those throughout that relationship. You're going to see those experiences, and those are the things that you're going to look back on, and you're going to rejoice, and those are going to be in your memory bank, and so we're looking forward to things like that. But it's work. And so don't think that you're going to be in some blissful and, exotic, lustful thing forever, because that's not the reality. It's something that we continue to shift and change and evolve and grow. And it's beautiful and it's ugly and it's rewarding. And I think just understanding all of that is awesome.
Yeah.
I
totally agree.
Yeah. So, yay. Thank you so much for this conversation. I swear I could talk to you all night about relationships.
Well, thank you for having me. I could talk all night about relationships.
Yeah.
And you guys have just inspired me for just to be talking more and so many more ideas and everything like that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Laura. And I'm excited to follow you on Instagram I was doing a little creeping earlier, and not under it's under the LaRocque Life podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm probably going to disable my actual Laura LaRocque page and just under LaRocque Life podcast, because Mike and I have our podcast together for relationships, and we're migrating more towards that for simplicity of life. I do not want to spend my life on social media. I want to spend my life living it and with the people I love. So 2 Instagram accounts is no longer in my reality.
Totally.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And hopefully in the future, in another season of Here for the Shift, we can have you back when we do some growing.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Nice to have Mike on too. Maybe next time, just kind of see the dynamics there and get a feel for whatever, just an idea. Thank you so much for being willing to come and share your story and your, being vulnerable and your truth and all that you do to help other people. The way that you serve, is beautiful and amazing. And so it's appreciated. I'm sure that you've helped many people, and I learned so much from you tonight. So thank you so much. And to everybody who tuned in and watched and listened, we love you and appreciate you. And thank you for your questions. We hope you have a really good night. Beautiful week. See you next Monday at 8:30 ish.
Yeah, 8:30-ish.
Central Time. I don't know the date, but yeah, it's on Monday. All right, take care. Peace.
Thank you guys. Have a
Thank
good night.
you.